now we want to look at what is playing out in Argentina, talking about the latest economic development, where President Milei in November inherited the worst inflation. And now, after 100 days, has been able to perform what some people or some analysts consider to be a miracle. But does miracle exist? What played out? How did he achieve this? Let's see what our guest analyst will have to say about this. He's an expert in this area. We're being joined by Dr. Ikenwa, who is a global affairs analyst and also a lecturer at the University of Lagos. Glad you have joined us this morning. Good to see you again.
Good to see you again. Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Good morning.
Good morning. Nice being here again.
All right. So let's look at what is playing out in Argentina. The man in question, has been in the news, not just for what happened, but how he was able to turn around the economy. He inherited the economy with the worst inflation in November. He's celebrating over his 100 days in office. And significant, if you look at the inflation rate in Argentina now, back to 13%. That's quite remarkable. But how do you react to that? What do you think played out? How was he able to achieve this milestone?
All right, kudos to Javier Milei. I hope I got the pronunciation of his name right. It goes to show that economic recovery is not a rocket science. And I'm happy we're taking up this topic, in as much as there are a couple of controversies around it and about it, but it goes to beg the question, or it should be an invitation to treat, like I would usually say, to Nigeria, to the Nigerian economy, and to the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, that the renewed hope we're talking about is possible, and we can make it happen in Nigeria if it could happen in Argentina. But we shouldn't also neglect the fact that the indicators of diversity, the indicators of inclusiveness, the cultural factors in Argentina appear to be different, maybe different from what is obtainable in Nigeria. But that doesn't change the fact that to set an economy on the trajectory of economic growth and good economic performance is not a rocket science. It is possible. Theoretically, it's possible. Practically, it is possible. So the challenge now will be what needs to be done. Asking ourselves the right questions, what needs to be done. The first thing I want to say is that Javier is a young man, a young man like me. Javier was born in 1970. So technically he's about 54 years old now. And that says a lot, for the younger generation. It puts a burden on the older generation in Nigeria to be able to position themselves to willingly hand over the baton. Some call it baton, some call it baton. To the younger generation to drive the indicators for economic performance. So the first point of analysis is the individual. Who is this guy? Secondly, he's an economist. He's an economist. We'll discuss what kind of economics he actually believes in. They say he's a leftist. Some say he's a controversial economist. But he was able to articulate the problem of his country. Identified the problem of his country. He gave the problem definitions. He looked at the wings that were responsible for the flight, the perpetuation of this problem in his country. And he called the spade and took the necessary decisions that they take. So he's taken some similar decisions like that and those which have been taken in Nigeria. But the fact that he is, for all sense and purpose, genuinely an economist means that he understands the dynamics, the mechanics of economics, and he takes it as it is and went on to implement policy, and of course has had a lot of opposition from the Senate or from the Congress in his country. It's not as if everything is all paradise now in Argentina, but we can see that this is a miracle, this is unprecedented. But as we take the discussion further, I would like to say, like my professor, under whom I apprenticed in the University of Lagos, Professor Ben Ogojavo, aka Big Ben, will always say, figures don't lie, but people tell lies with figures. So we'll get to that as we go on. Figures don't lie, but people tell lies with figures.
I hope you are not shaking table here.
It seemed like it's already, the table's shaking already.
Okay.
So let's look at the figures and we'll look at it if they lie or what lie can be told with these figures. So let's begin from December. December 2023 in Argentina. So in December, the inflation was around 25.5%. It dropped to 20.6% in January. And so in February, it dropped again to 13.2% in February. This is significant. An inflation rate of 25.5% in 2 months, coming down to 13.2%. Now, President Javier Milei had deployed several austerity measures, including devaluing the country's currency by 50%. All of these measures put together have led to the inflation dropping significantly from 25.5% to 13.2%. So back to your theory of figures don't lie, but people lie with figures.
Yes.
What do you see?
So the figures, the statistics that come with data do not lie. But people could manipulate those figures, the data, and tell lies with the figures. Now, there's a problem with the actual statistics that we are dealing with. Now, there is no controversy about the fact that there is some degree of economic recovery. And remarkably, under 100 days of this young intellectuals, he used to be a TV pundit, just like I'm speaking now. And he was able to get radical ideas through the population, and the population cited him and, gave him a chance to become president and voted for him. But whilst we are celebrating, the reduction of the inflation from December, which was at a rate of about 30% give and take, plus or minus 5, and now in March we have about 13.1%.
In February.
In February, 13.1%. There is another side to the story. That yes, the figures of inflation, as quoted now by a particular organization, is standing at 13%, has actually gone down, no doubt. But that the poverty figures, the percentage of figures, the percentage of child poverty the percentage of food insecurity in Argentina has likely gone up. So if it has gone up, not there's a likelihood. So there's a controversy here. And the controversy also revolves around the fact that another institution called the INDEC actually did say that, look, inflation in Argentina is actually 250%, and it has come down to about 217% or thereabout, and is not as touted. So that's why I said that we are vacillating between who said, what said, and what is actually on ground. But most importantly, Blessing, like you said, what we should be looking at that has brought us to this point is what the individual has done correctly. And he has done that with a lot of spillover effects, a lot of, we call them negative network externalities, which means that a good number of citizens, a good number of institutions, a good number of powerful individuals have been hurt, by his decisions. Now, one of the things he did was that the over 300 government agencies in his country were scrapped. And then, like Blessing said, he actually devalued the currency by about 50%, all right, to $1. And I think $1 goes from about 800 pesos now to $1. And he, most importantly, and I want the presidency of Nigeria to take note of this, I want the state governors in Nigeria to take note of this, he reduced government spending radically. And so what he did and what he is doing with great opposition, but with mileage of success in his country, is that he has enshrined totally fiscal responsibility, fiscal discipline. And that is showing off in the growth, figures and indexes we're seeing in his country. Now, the question is, where did he get that audacity? And does the cultural or social-cultural context give him that, ambience to be able to perform? If we bring that back home, how possible is that? In Nigeria, we have a component of nations, of peoples, like I love to say, that are 350. In the Senate, we have about 109, and in the House of Reps, we have about 360. Now, it's possible that the first thing you want to do as president begins to have a dichotomy in reception. Oh, is it for the North, or is it against the North? Oh, is it for the South, or is it against the South? Javier doesn't have that much problem, except for the fact that some of his policies, some of his initiatives have been resisted, continue to be resisted, and he still continues to push. But one thing I want to emphasize on that Javier has done as an economist is that he has looked at the national income accounting, or what you call the aggregate demand, equation of his country, all right? And he has discovered that one of the major problems that we're having as a country is that we are overspending. We are pushing too much money into the economy that is responsible for this inflation. And that is, in my own view, and I'm entitled to my view, but I may not be entitled to the facts. I'm entitled to my own opinion. In my own opinion, is one of the problems why we're having the kind of inflation that we're having in Nigeria. Another thing that Javier has done is that he has mainstreamed regulatory economics, regulation in the country. So you had about 300 agencies doing what? Go. So the fewer, the better in this case. They can properly focus. Regulation is on the high, and that is what we need in Nigeria. And I think Nigeria is borrowing a leaf from that, or Nigeria has gone ahead of that curve with the implementation or partial implementation of the Orasanya report. I think that this government is on track, but there is more that needs to be done, and there's more that needs to be shown than heard. We need to have a strong pivot in the country for fiscal responsibility, fiscal discipline, and reduce government spending. If you ask me, I don't think the state at which we are in Nigeria now, we need a budget of 28 trillion. That is outrightly too much. That is pushing excess liquidity into the Nigerian economy, and that means you're having too much money pursuing very few goods, and that translates to inflation in different leaps and bounds in the country.
Let's look at what some of his critics are saying. He's been largely criticized when it comes to some of the austerity measures he has taken in recent times. The fear on the part of some people is that this would trigger unemployment. And it's looking like you're trying to solve a problem, yet you are creating another problem, and which might likely be a time bomb in a matter of months. How do you reconcile this?
Necessity is the mother of invention. What is employment, or what is needed for economic growth? What is needed for economic growth, stability, is the full employment of the factors of labor. And so when we talk about economics, people just focus on labor. People focus on people losing their jobs. People don't focus on where capital is going and the kind of capital that is needed to keep the economy stable. So what I've seen that Javier has done is to put in place policies, pivotal policies, that will see to the full employment of the entire factors of production, productive economics in this country. Now, when you say unemployment, what do you actually mean by unemployment? You're saying people are going to lose jobs, all right? If people lose jobs, if people don't have jobs, that is an opportunity. That becomes a canvas for them to reorganize their thinking and channel their own intellectual capital into creative ventures that will add value to the economy. Now, one of the things that we see in most countries is that there's a high degree of redundancy. People are earning salaries for jobs that they are not doing or doing efficiently. And one of the things that you need to know about Javier, like I said, the kind of economics he practices, he is more of a Freudian economics, all right? We had a guy by the name Professor Milton Friedman. I think he's an American, a former Nobel Prize winner in economics. And one of the arguments of Freud is that government has no business being in business. So one of the things that Javier is doing is that he's selling off let's use for better word of expression. He's privatizing most public institutions and saying, look, this is part of what is causing the problem, redundancy. We were talking about, I heard you, from the Cove, talking about water crisis. We have a water corporation in Lagos. We have a Ministry of Water Resources in Nigeria. But I can tell you that at least where I stay, we generate water for ourselves, we maintain a borehole for ourselves, and we provide the water for ourselves. So if Nigerians are the ones that have to provide water for themselves, why do you have the Ministry of Water Resources? Why do you have a water corporation? And then you go to the water corporation, you have so many people that are employed there. That is redundancy. That is also a leakage that pushes money into the economy that in one way or the other facilitates or promotes or engenders inflation. So I do not buy that argument, all right? I believe that what he's doing, if it is sincere, if it is for the right purpose and intent, selling up businesses, most businesses, and privatizing them, it ought to push for more creativity. And what that does, like we saw in Nigeria a little under 24 years ago, is that when you have more private hands coming into business, it stimulates creativity, stimulates competition, and it breeds standard. We saw that with the telecoms industry in Nigeria. There was a time where we had to go queue. All right, I'm not going to mention the name of the phone company now, but we had to go queue to make phone calls. We had to beg people to come and, I don't know if you remember the time when you have to wait and wind your telephones and wait for almost 5-10 minutes for you to wait for what we used to call, when I was a child, dialing tone. And then the year 2000, people came on board, Obasanjo came on board, gave out GSM licenses, and the prices crashed, and Glo came on board. Glo should be paying Souq for mention. I'm mentioning Glo, so they should come and pay Souq for advert. So I'm advertising Glo indirectly now. Glo came on board, there was more competition, there was more standardization, and the prices crashed. And everybody today is enjoying GSM. That, I think, is what Javier is doing. But one of the major criticisms, again, with respect to his privatization drive, is that of the question of who are those that are buying these businesses. And that brings us back to the Nigerian question. When we did undertake privatization in Nigeria, who were those that bought the businesses? Who were those that bought PHCN? The question again, which General Mohammed Buhari asked now as civilian president, was and is that those that bought all this power infrastructure and power companies, did they have the capability? My answer and reply to the general sitting back in Katsina is that yes, you are right on spot on that. They did not have the capabilities. They had no business buying those institutions or those infrastructure. And today, we are seeing the brunt of that on the Nigerian people and the Nigerian economy. If Javier is doing something right, let's say he's doing something right, and let us leave a trail of that analysis for the government in Nigeria to follow and borrow a leaf from and get us out of where we are presently.
Can Nigeria actually borrow a leaf from Argentina? Because it is estimated that around 40% of the population in Argentina live in poverty. Now, some of the measures that the president is bringing on, he has warned that they would initially have negative impact on employment, wages, and the number of poor and indigenous people. The reason for controlling inflation is to make life easy, make the economy better even for the poor. Now, if the poor are already feeling the brunt and will feel it more with some of these measures, do you think they will be patient enough to see the effect of these measures come into place?
All right, that's a good question. And when you bring it home, it technically means that all of us in Nigeria, I was with somebody yesterday and he said the middle class in Nigeria is disappearing. So we're not poor, but we're going through very, very hard economic times. I go out a lot. I just don't come on TV, on a well-celebrated station like Souq to just talk. I go out. I try to see what's happening in the market. Yesterday, I bought sweet potatoes. And when I went to who was supposed to be my customer, the guy told me, sir, we know they sell 500 naira sweet potato again. You can imagine. So even those of us that think we're in the middle class, honestly, Blessing, I drove off because what I wanted to buy was 500 naira worth. Because I couldn't afford 1,000. I didn't need to buy 1,000. But that tells you that everybody is feeling it in Nigeria and will feel it. Even in England, I have relatives there. Things are not, we have the major effects, the major cause of what we're seeing globally are the various wars, pockets of wars that are taking place, either in the Middle East or in Russia or in Euro-Asia, as we call it, between Ukraine and Russia. Now, but back to your question on how policies actually affect the poor. Well, that is where I have a problem with policy formulators and with the implementation of policies. We can say that you are right on spot, that most policies are not usually people-centered. And for policies to be people-centered, they must be Pareto compliant. And what does that mean? When we talk of Pareto, we talk of the 80-20 principle. It means that when you are taking a decision, at least you should consider the fact that nothing less or nothing more than 20% of your population should be affected negatively by that, leaving the other 80%, to benefit. But it is not realistic to sometimes take these hard decisions and not expect that there would be negative network externalities and slow Pareto improvements in seeing those things come to pass. So it's hard because I feel the brunt. I mean, in where I stay, for instance, I've not had light consistently for almost a month. And that means for every other day, I need to buy at least about 5 liters of fuel to keep the fridge going and to keep myself a little bit warm at night. And that's about 3,000 naira a day. Now multiply that by 30 days, that's 90,000. Then you ask the question, how much am I actually making? So, but we hope that there can be improvements. But that hope rests on one very important thing, blessing. The need for policy formulators, the need for administrators to engage the people. And that is one thing I'm not saying in Nigeria. I need to see a president that comes out to talk with the people, comes out to explain to the people what his policies are and why those policies are the way they are. That way you would have people empathize. People will complain. Okay, I mean, before the BRTs of this world came and before the kind of organized or semi-organized system we had in India, we weren't queuing at bus stops. And if you had told people to queue, then they wouldn't have seen the need, for that. But now I was at the bus stop. I came with BRT today, and you could see the queue. I had to leave there, look for another alternative to get here. But that wasn't the culture hitherto in Nigeria. So if you explain to people, if you convey to people the reason why you are taking a particular policy, and if you put the right palliatives in place, the people who own the government. It's a government for the people, by the people, and of the people. Unfortunately, the Nigerian government, in my own view, may not be a government of the people. It's a government of the elitists, by the elitists, for the elitists. But coming back to the people, if you engage the people, there is a possibility that we can get them to empathize and get them to be patient and get them to run along with these policies and wait for the Pareto improvements that will come over time. It doesn't come easy, but it comes with a collective effort of all of us believing in what the leaders we have elected to do can actually do, if they're actually doing it.
All right, looking at what President Mia has done in the last 100 days, the disposition to handling the inflation, economic crisis of that country, what are the lessons for Nigeria here and the Nigerian government?
The first lesson is for us to have a generational transition. And I know that doesn't make too many people happy.
Is it about the age for performance?
I'm not going to answer that question, Blessing. The fact is that we need a generational transition. I'm not going to tell you my age. I'm sure you can guess with the strands of white hair that you are seeing and with my hair thinning out gradually.
I don't think age has anything to do.
No, but I'm telling you that when I was a boy at 5, I was hearing some names. 5, 6, 7 years old. I was hearing some names. When I was in primary school preparing for common entrance, almost over 40 years ago, I was hearing some names. We had to cram those names. Those names are still in power today. Those names are still relevant today. Those names are still making decisions for the economy today. Those people are still there. Where's the transition?
It's not exclusive to Nigeria. Joe Biden is in his 80s. Look at Trump. If you look at even Putin, 71.
When we started, I did mention something. The components of these countries differ. When you look at Argentina, how many tribes, how many people, how many different ethnic cleavages and groupings do you have in Argentina? And when did Argentina start? Argentina is a paradox, as much as Nigeria is a paradox. But they are not on the same pedestal. Okay? So you can't tell me that you want to compare America and Nigeria. There's no basis for that. America is a 24 trillion.
About the age factor now.
I didn't mention age. You mentioned age. I am saying the first lesson we should learn is the need for us to pave the way for generational transition. However you want to,
but it's the same thing.
Interpret that phrase, that nomenclature, I'll leave that to your intellectual
It's like saying 6 1/2 dozen.
But Nigeria should learn. We need to start preparing. We need to start, leaving the structures on ground for generational transitions. Look, we can't continue to have analog leaders, analog policy formulators, all right, in a digital age. There are so many things I know, like Yahaya Bello, former governor of Kogi State, will always say, I know too much. I don't know too much, but I've been around too much. Okay? And I can tell you that we have in Nigeria what I call the football age crisis. I won't say anything beyond that, so I don't put our boys in trouble. So it's not about age. It's about intellectual transition. It's about the audacity for a generation to look at where the previous generations have failed. Argentina has been in this crisis for about 20 years. So give and take, Javier was about 30 years old, seeing his country go down. He's gone to school, he's got a PhD, he's got radical ideas, and then there's a transition. And he's given the opportunity, and he's implementing. And we're seeing the trickle effects of performance coming on board. Okay? So another thing I think we need to emphasize is credentials. And by credentials, I'm not talking about whether you have a PhD or whether you have a certificate from University of Lagos or from Ambrosoli University. Credentials. And by that, I mean, what is the dominant ideology of an individual, or what is the dominant ideology of a political party? The Argentines, a majority of them, voted for a new ideology. So I think I live in a country where we have a multiplicity of dominant ideologies, a multiplicity of economic systems, an overlap of economic systems, and we need to have one that marries a futuristic vision that makes provision for equitable distribution of the commonwealth of Nigeria. And that's the problem with Nigeria. The lack of distributive justice. That's the problem with Nigeria. The lack of distributive justice, the lack of popular justice for all. So we have a country, for instance, where it seems that to some groups there is parity, there is fairness, there is equity, and to others there is no equity. We have an institution, all right, of governance where some people do something wrong and some people are punished and others are sacred cows. Nigeria has not been fair to women, and we must say that, and I'm saying that. If you call me a conservative feminist, fine, no problem. Nigeria has not been fair to women. We saw that recently, where a female minister had a challenge and she was let out, shown the way out, and where another minister who was complicit in the matter is still there today. Where's the transition? Where's the justice? So these are issues. But this is a young guy in Argentina that doesn't care whose horse is God and is doing what he has to do. If you follow more about the narrative, he's even pushing for policies that will be formulated. That's what I mean by being futuristic by the midterm elections, and he's going to be campaigning on the basis of those policies. And I think we are going to see the best out of Argentina if they allow him to do what he believes is best and in the collective interest for his people and for his country.
All right, going back to analog maybe thinking or analog way of doing things, let's look at the economic policies. Some of them are beginning to seem analog or not so relevant. There seems to be a one-size-fits-all economic method of tackling inflation, which is to tighten monetary policy. So several countries have employed this, and it hasn't given the same effect. Let's go over to Switzerland now, which has cut rates as against what other central banks are doing. So the Swiss National Bank cut its main interest rate by 25 basis points to 1.50 on Thursday, which was a surprise move. Now the Fed met sometime last week to also look at either retain rates, or there was a debate around it. Are they going to hold on to the rates or cut it? The same thing with the Bank of England. So around some countries dealing with inflation, the first move is to increase interest rates. Is it time to review some of these economic policies or to review some of these economic methods, as the causes and reasons for inflation in countries now are beginning to almost defy these economic methods?
Well, Blessing, you couldn't have said it any better. And I've made reference to this in our discussion this morning so far. Different contexts, different policies. Different countries would need to fashion out policies according to their, heterogeneous, not homogeneous contexts. So in Switzerland, it's possible for you to cut rates. Don't forget there is economic stability, and when you look at a country like Switzerland, that's one of the richest countries on earth. And in Nigeria, we are needing to increase rates. So the question is why? And that question can be best answered when you ask, what kind of economics do we practice in Nigeria, if we practice any? Nigeria is a very complex country. Our economy is very complex. But the interesting thing is that the most complex of problems are best solved by very simple, solutions, simple suggestions. Who would listen to those who have those simple suggestions, or who would take them in, or who would implement those simple suggestions is the Nigerian problem. Now, when you look at Nigeria, we have to look at it from two types of economics, the supply side economics or the demand side economics. And the supply side economics you can also refer to as Reaganomics, while the demand side you can refer to Keynesian economics, or just let's call it demand side. And what do those types of economics mean? The supply side means that the government drives economic growth, supposedly, theoretically, by pumping in money into the economy. And the assumption is that when you pump in money into the economy and you cut taxes, businesses will thrive and more people will want to come and invest. Now, but you and I know the basic laws of demand and supply. Now, if you are asking people to come and invest in a country where the demand is low, that becomes another problem. So some countries prefer to drive economic growth through demand, side economics. Let the demand, let the productivity in the country increase, and let the demand for the country's goods and services, either externally, also increase. So Nigeria, as we stand, is in between the supply side economics, Reaganomics, and the demand side economics. But what we need for now, given the complexity of our structure as a people, is equilibrium economics. We need financial equilibrium, all right? Where there is a balance between supply and demand, and where, if we have to succeed with all of these policies, which are by no means very good policies, the policies being put on ground now by Dr. Yemi Kasodo and this present government are good policies. But the problem is the reception of these policies. Most importantly, the implementation of these policies. Much more importantly, is the regulation. The regulatory institutions that are supposed to ensure that these policies hit a home run. That is where we're having a challenge. As far as the policies are concerned, increasing interest rates, the idea is that if interests are increased, people will not come to banks and borrow too much money, and we would not have the same issue of excess liquidity in Nigeria. Now, cutting rates in Switzerland, the idea is that people are not demanding enough. People are not buying enough. There is no economic activity in our country. So let's cut interest rates. Let's cut taxes. Maybe people will now buy more. People will now borrow more. People will now even borrow to travel, or people will now borrow to buy real estate, and that drives the economy. So what may be good for Peter may not be applicable to Paul, and that's what we're seeing in Nigeria. I honestly think that the policies in Nigeria now are good policies. I just feel that the regulatory backup is not as efficient as it ought to be, and the palliatives, to cushion the effect on the critical mass of Nigerian people are not Pareto optimal, and that is what the government needs to work on. And the first way to start going about that is to talk to the people, engage the people, and do what is right. And government should cut spending. All right, and I think the president is trying. I heard now that he has stopped most government officials from traveling, but that is not enough. I also think that spending too much on one arm of government, buying cars for them and giving them humongous salaries, and government officials earning humongous salaries, elected officials, most of whom were already billionaires before they got there. These people should borrow a lift from people like Alex Oti, who has said, in quotes, that he is not going to be earning salary. Well, I don't think he may be serious about that, but salaries come in different forms. So let us hope that he will be true to his word.
I see the tables are wobbling because it's like
let them wobble. People are suffering. We need to tell the world the truth. These government officials need to hear the truth. You can't come and tell the world that you're not going to take salaries, all right, when some other forms of compensations can be coming your way. So it's good. I mean, what is happening in Abia State is good. I'm pointing that out, but it can be better. It should be replicated across different states of Nigeria, and we should ensure the national income accounting equation I told you about is simply C plus I plus G into bracket X minus N. What's C? Consumption. I is investment. G is government expenditure. X is exports minus imports. N. What Javier has done is to reduce G. So when there's a reduction in G, cut taxes, all right? People can now come in, put in more money into the economy, and then you control consumption. So when you say things are expensive, people are not, some of us even buy many things we don't need, Okay, I went to buy sweet potatoes yesterday. Did I need 1,000 naira for what? I also need 500 just to have a good meal. And that was, good for me. Okay. So I think we're on track, but we must be serious about these issues and take it, bring the discussion home. A good number of Nigerians are suffering. People are begging. And I received a phone call from somebody I wouldn't have received a phone call from yesterday. He's telling me he's hungry.
Yeah, I wish we had more time to talk about this, but we're already out of time. Thank you very much, Dr. Ikenwa, for your wonderful, very brilliant and vibrating submissions.
Table shaking.
Table shaking, I must add that to it. Table shaking submissions on the show today. We do hope that the appropriate quarters would do the needful to ensure that Nigerian people of Argentina and citizens of various countries in the world battling inflation actually have a reprieve. I am Blessing H. What a wonderful week it has been, I must say, and we thank you so much for being with us all through the week. We ask, let's do this again from Monday. Have yourself a great week.
For us to achieve the Nigeria of our dream, all hands have to be on deck. So think of what you can do for your country, not just what your country can do for you. I rest my case here. It's weekend, so enjoy your weekend and bye for now.
Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.